In contrast, the Queen has had a long and happy marriage to Prince Philip, spanning 2 centuries. They first met in 1939, when she was only 13. It was at the Royal Naval College at Dartmouth, where the young Philip was a cadet. His uncle, Lord Mountbatten, had invited the royal family to visit.
And my father was rather looking after them and got hold of Prince Philip also to look after the girls. And I think that Princess Elizabeth fell at that moment in love.
Philip, at 18, was almost 5 years older than the princess. But after 5 long years of war and separation, the looks that passed between Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten and Princess Elizabeth confirmed that there was more to this attraction than a schoolgirl crush. The couple were married at Westminster Abbey on the 20th of November 1947, when Elizabeth was 21.
The United Kingdom was 2 years out of the Second World War. London looked a bit of a bomb site. So this was the first grand ceremony after the Second World War. The household cavalry who would act as escort dusted off their breastplates. So it added a splash of colour to a very austere United Kingdom.
Britain in 1947 was going through a terrible time, both domestically and internationally. We had had a terrible winter, about to have another terrible winter, and there was real deprivation and poverty. And so to see the splendour of this beautiful young lady as she walked down the aisle with this handsome young brave prince was something that went to the very heart of the British people.
Following the bridal procession came the bride's father and mother, and behind them 5 kings, 5 queens, and 8 princes and princesses.
But it did remain cloudy, and it did to forget about the misery that people were suffering.
Britain was still under wartime rationing, and the palace was careful to take this into consideration when it came to Princess Elizabeth's wedding dress.
Princess Elizabeth would have been wanting to wear something that was befitting of her status, but also not to distance herself from the rest of her country. So what we're looking at is quite an understated dress.
The dress was designed by Norman Hartnum and was made of ivory Duchess satin, embroidered in seed pearls and crystal. But her bridesmaids' dresses were made of less luxurious fabric. Lady Pamela Hicks has kept hers for over 60 years.
I only saw the bridesmaid's dress 3 days ago when you got it out of the box, and was surprised to see that this was the material it was made from. But when Mum explained that that was because of the rations during the war, it made more sense. But I can't understand how you must have worn something that's so scratchy. Oh, don't be silly. Lovely, lovely petticoats. Beautiful satin petticoats, which made it not scratchy at all. No, it is very beautiful dress. And also, we were so entranced by all the embroidered edging to it, all the stars. There's a great deal of waiting around, of course, while the photographic groups are taken. But it's a lovely gathering for, of course, all the foreign relations, because usually they only get all those kind of cousins and uncles and aunts. They only get to see people at a funeral or a wedding.
Happy beginnings for the future queen. But life was to be very different for her sister, Princess Margaret.
Princess, Cliff, and the Shadow. What an evening it was for the 700 teenagers.
Enjoying the new freedoms of 1960s, Princess Margaret met a young photographer, Anthony Armstrong Jones.
It was a very glamorous affair. There was this, I suppose we'd call her today Playboy princess because she enjoyed life. This rather bohemian character, photographer, fashion photographer who'd had a bevy of women around him, because that's what photographers have.
He was a middle-class person, and this was considered by a lot of the foreign royals as a mésalliance. But by the British people it wasn't. It was seemed to be a breath of fresh air in this new environment of the 1960s. The decade of the Beatles and free love and drug taking and parties and all the other things that one thinks of with regard to the 1960s, kicked off in a sense with this marriage.
Weddings are supposed to be the stuff of fairy tales, but there was a poignancy to this occasion. Princess Margaret was given away by her brother-in-law, Prince Philip, because of her father's early death. She would also go on to live in the shadow of her sister, the Queen, and she had not been able to marry the great love of her life, good Captain Peter Townsend, because he was a divorcee.
Divorce was a absolute bar to marrying a member of the royal family.
Princess Margaret's wedding day showed to the world for the first time the power of the new medium, which would go on both to revolutionize but also plague the royal family: television.
The power of television has been tremendously important in the story of the royal family, suddenly allowing into the homes of 300 million people. That's how many people watched Princess Margaret's wedding. The sense of what is private, what is a church service after all, is suddenly beamed to 300 million people.
Margaret Rose, wilt thou have this man
was to turn the story of the royals into the kind of soap opera that it later became with Princess Diana and others. And it had its very positive sides, but of course, ultimately, its very negative sides too.
Margaret looked radiant in a normal Hartnell design, like her sister 13 years before.
She was a great beauty, and she went for a wonderfully classic style. It was very much a comment on where she was. She was going out with a very young, up-and-coming, very hip, up-and-coming photographer. And I think her take was, it was very stylish.
On her head, she wore the Baltimore tiara, which can also be worn as a necklace or as brooches. Mr. Anthony Armstrong-Jones is now a lord, the first Earl of Snowdon. He will bring a touch of 60s spirit into Buckingham Palace.
Buckingham Palace is
As evidence of the growing power of the new media,
on these
viewers were for the first time able to see a royal bride and groom enter Buckingham Palace. Prince Charles, aged 11, is wearing a full dress kilt. For a short time, the public is able to see inside the family home. But the cameras were never to be allowed this far again.
a target on the day of this May wedding for surging, excited crowds. They chant Margaret, they chant Tony. This is their day.
Off on honeymoon, Princess Margaret and her husband became the first of 4 royal couples to sail away on the new royal yacht Britannia, commissioned in 1954.
Sing a song of London where the river meets the sea. Port of London, river proud.
They would be followed by Princess Anne after her marriage to Captain Mark Phillips 13 years